Games. Board games, it's what I'm not talking about. Board games, but I'm not gonna shout. I am starting off this streaming with a little bit of singing, and today I am going to talk about comics. These 5 books, which could be considered tricks because there's magic within it. Sam and Fuzzy, Newshead, and Fix Your Problem, and Understanding Comics, and Cartoon Coup were made by these peeps. Yeah, this is terrible. Let me start again. Look, I am Bez. I am doing a show. It's ostensibly called Bezzy Beats and Board Game Blether. I normally talk about board games, but today, just for today, I am chatting about comics. I'm going to be reviewing a bunch of comics that I've really enjoyed recently. And if you just want to know, do I like these? Yes, I like all of them. I enjoy all of them, and I'm going to definitely be keeping them. I think, definitely is always a strong word. But look, that's what it's all about. So comics, it's what comics, it's what I'm talking about. Comics, I'm not gonna shout. I am starting off this streaming with a little bit of singing. And there's one from my fake nemesis, who is actually a friend who really does exist. Ryan Estrada made a comic called Cartoon Coup, and I will describe my thoughts on this comic to you. There's 1, 2, 3 by Sam Logan, who is someone made a comic called Fix Your Problem. And these are all quite entertaining, and these are more things I'll be reviewing. And finally, this is the one I recommend most of all. It is a comic that's truly wonderful. It's from the legend known as Scott McCloud, who invented 24-hour comics and did all sorts of things with which I hope Scott is proud. It's a great book, seriously. I mean, not that the others aren't great books as well. They're all great, but yeah, that's my review, basically. They're all good. This one's the best. But comics, it's what I'm talking about. Comics, I'm not gonna shout. So hello, good afternoon, good evening, good whatever it is, wherever you are, and I hope that you are generally well. As always, I like to start by asking my audience, what have you been up to recently? What are some of your highlights? What have you enjoyed? Recent highlights, living life and seeing the sights. Recent highlights, playing games and other delights. Recent highlights. So let's talk about it. I have yesterday been doing a wee bit of game design on Dinosaurs Love Spicy Pies, which is the game invented by myself, Rita Modal, and his Creole. I've been enjoying the sun. I've been actually reading a wee bit of, let me lean back, just Rising Stars of manga. It's a bunch of competition winners. I do like anthologies because you get, in here you get this many different people. So there's a variety of styles and it's quite nice. But when they are so short, I think they're like 16 pages each, I want to say. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 18 pages each. I mean, yeah, and someone's trying to put their best foot forward. People are trying to, there's a lot of density within these 18 pages per comic, but I'm really enjoying that. Started wandering around Pollock Country Park a wee bit busier than I would have liked, but we found a private spot in the woods where the family sat on logs and we had a wonderful picnic. So those are some of my recent highlights. And if you're watching, let me know, what are some of your recent highlights? I genuinely would be interested to know. Oh my gosh, sorry about that. But yeah, I hope that did I just but the questionably quick questions. If anyone has any questions that they want to throw into the chat. Oh, hello, Timmy. I'm sorry, I kind of got disconnected for literally 30 seconds. So I can't flash up on the screen, but it is lovely to see you. Here I am in the UK. I'm in the northern part currently before I go back down to my normal place. So I am with my parents just now, have been for the past few months. It is cloudy. It is 10:07. Oh, and why is that not coming up? Why is that not coming up? Something is weird going on there. There we go. Snowstorm tomorrow. Okay, finally my internet is all working. I took myself off I've got my wire in. It's using the wire. Sorry about that. We shouldn't have any more issues, but snowstorm tomorrow, it just kind of underscores what the difference is going on between Nova Scotia and here in the UK. Yeah, we don't have things like that. Now, of course, whilst you're thinking of your questionably quick questions, I am going to talk about a brilliant thing. What's a little thing which is brilliant? I am going to talk about making comics. So not comics as reading comics, not comics as an art form, not comics as a storytelling medium, but specifically making comics. So what I want to say is that drawings are all well and good. I love to sometimes draw, but giving that drawing a little bit of purpose. I don't know if anyone here has ever done an animation where you do a drawing and then you do a little frame by frame drawing, and then after a while it's like, wow, I've given life to this being. It's amazing, and it's like they're alive, and you feel proud. Now, with a comic, there is a little sense of when you create a character, it starts to live because you show them in different angles, and obviously it's a lot easier. There's a lot fewer drawings to do something like any of these comics that I'm talking about. But the joy of that drawing, I think there's a really nice middle ground between requiring the repetition of the characters and everything for the comic, and also in not being as repetitive as an in-betweener, because really doing in-betweening in frame-by-frame drawings is just a wee bit dull. It's a wee bit boring. This is all from a personal perspective. And personally, when I have these memories, when I think back to 2005, when I was kind of really drawing so many comics, it was like there was a story, there was something that I was writing, that it was coming from my head, and I was trying to do this big thing, and the story keeps me motivated. You know what I mean? Having that story, having that feeling of, okay, I need to show the next part of it, and so that keeps me motivated. Obviously, this is very much from a selfish, I want to create something, I want to draw more, here's an excuse for drawing. Also, frankly, it is that marriage, it's that wonderful balance between story. Anyway, we'll talk about that a wee bit later, I'm sure, as we get into understanding comics, the comic that is all about comics. So if you want to ask me any questionably quick questions, then feel free. Otherwise, let me just remind you to comment, ask questions, follow, and I am going to get myself set up so that I can show you things from both the cameras simultaneously. So here we go. That is me, and I am going to pop myself in. Stop going on to voice control, darn phone. Okay. Now, here we go. Okay. So, yes, that should be okay. Let me know if there is any issues with what's going on here. What shall we start off with? Let's start off with Sam and Fuzzy. So there are 3 pages about Sam and Fuzzy that I've got here, and we'll start with this one, which is Sam and... So we are going to be reviewing all of these things, Sam and Fuzzy, and we'll be going through all of these. And let's start off, as I said, with Sam and Fuzzy, the first printed comic by Sam Logan. I love this kind of fake newspaper headline stuff. It's just glorious with, this just in, man collects comics and books, sells it. The self-referential bit. Build up your bodies, see page 26 for details. And if you actually look at page 26, it is a comic strip all about that. This kind of slightly self-deprecating style tells you exactly what's going to be going on in the book. And there were these exclusive comics all about Skull Panda. Now, this is, I believe this was the first collection that Sam Logan sold. It's basically the highlights. Sam and Fuzzy, it started off as a internet webcomic. It's still, I just checked it recently, and actually I should probably, where's Sam and Fuzzy? I'm going to just do a quick link to Sam and Fuzzy everywhere. And if you want to see it's online, you can see all of these comics for free. It continues to be up there. Now Sam has gone on to do something about a vote dog, a president whose dog using colour. That was something that you wouldn't have thought would be a thing. You can see, hey, read it online, Sam and Fuzzy, fix your problem. And Sam used to be known for a stark black and white style. And when Sam introduced a bit of grey, like a third colour, it was a really big deal. But this takes us back to the start, way back to the start, the classic series, Taxicab of Dreams, Growing Pains and Love of War. So 2003 to 2006, Sam Logan was, this is, you can see the stark difference in drawing style. You can see what, the lines are a little bit more uncertain. It feels like the framing isn't quite as good, but then we see the comics that Sam has collected into this spread in front of me. And these are really the highlights. I really love this when someone decides that they're going to just go with the best. Sam Logan has done the curation in this comic, and I don't know why am I even reviewing this, because you're not going to be able to buy this. But like, just Sam, this was a fantastic this was a fantastic curation of things. It starts late enough that Sam has clearly works out what they're all about. It carries on and features a few things that refer to each other, but skipping enough that it fits into a handy little zine. And yeah, it has a couple of small story arcs, and it gives you a really nice introduction to what's going on in here. Honestly, yeah, I don't have much to say, and I feel kind of weird about talking about stuff that is this old. But this is such a big part of my... I guess this is such a big part of my childhood. This is such a big part of my adolescence, you could say, because as I got into webcomics, it was very much Sam Logan, Ryan Estrada, and yeah, Scott McCloud and Jeff Jacks of Questionable Content, and yeah, John Allison for Scary Go Round. And these are such great artists. I think it's inevitable that when you read something online, right, it's fine, it's okay, you've got like that couple of seconds in between each comic, and the reading experience isn't quite as good as it could be. For sure, when you've got something like this, it is so much nicer. And this old thing, given that this is no longer available, like, I just want to say, yes, this feels like a reminder of this is where Sam Logan came from. And so you see Skull Panda. I just want to talk about Skull Panda. This is a brilliant thing. So Rick Esteban. Rick Esteban is a character within the universe who created these Skull Panda comics, and that wasn't enough. No, we have to see these Skull Panda comics and these little jaggy lines and almost self-parodying, going with the extra jagginess, going with the extra uncertainty, going with the extra starkness, going with the extra squiggly lines, and things aren't totally precise. And I don't know whether this reflects some of Sam Logan's neuroses, but you can see that's someone to embody another character, and this is just brilliant. And there's a mixture of, in these, there's, what I want to say, 1, 2, 3, yeah, there's only 2 comics, so like 3 pages, and there's a mixture of whimsy, there's a mixture of dark humor, yes, death, and a mixture of crass, vacuous. I mean, in universe, this is meant to be the epitome of crass commercialization. But no, I feel weird saying this, but especially since this is not available, this is something that I'm definitely going to keep hold of, and it's such a lovely comic. Now I want to talk about Noosehead. This is a small volume by Sam Logan, and similarly, you can see a lovely cover. This is part of the arc where Sam Logan essentially hid one of the main characters. So the 2 main characters, as you can see here, are Sam and Fuzzy. Now, there were literally, I think, multiple years where, yeah, sure, Fuzzy's one of the roadies. Who's the other characters? Who are all these people? Well, the plot says that Sam's had to go into hiding after assassinating the Ninja Mafia. And the whole history of Sam and Fuzzy, it started off very irreverent, very much, okay, gag a day, we're going to carry on. And let me bring up the thing. If we look at the earlier comics, this possessed fridge, which you don't know what's going on at all with this. It's just for the sake of a gag. And then Sam and Fuzzy talking about each other, and you within this joke. Okay, so a guy walks into the bar. What was the name of? You get a real sense of. I just want to acknowledge the writing here. You get a real sense of the obnoxiousness, the chaos within Fuzzy. You get a sense of the exacerbation, the exasperation. You know what I mean. The the annoyance within Sam saying, "Yes, Fuzzy, I am a joke fascist. Yes, I am," and it's day by day, each day a separate joke until new characters arrive. And yes, there's more and more continuity until we go to crazy recurring characters like the Ninja Mafia, like the taxi driver who takes people where they have to be, and then like Fuzzy's history. And this feels like it was when Sam Logan was very much had reached, Sam Logan is just a really good storyteller. That's what it comes down to. And within this small volume of how many pages? 47 pages. Is that actually yeah. So there's 47 pages of this story, and within 47 pages, you start off with a tale of this angry band, Noosehead, who's having some sorts of management issues. There's a strong resolution. You feel a sense of completion at the end. If you read this on its own as a volume, there is no Sam and Fuzzy. It doesn't concentrate on these people. It's very much a story about the emotional state of Sid, the sadist. And yeah, this to me is probably the greatest volume that Sam Logan has, because it's a nice little self-contained package. Again, this is highly recommended, and I would very much and these comics again are available if you want to check them out online to find everything going on. Finally, I want to get into Sam and Fuzzy Fix Your Problem, which is the first volume of what was going to become a multi-volume collection of explaining the big long story. This is where it was essentially rebooted. Okay, so this book, let me actually there we go. So this book, I have a slight, I just want to warn you, it comes down to, what do you like in comics? Do you like, can I, maybe there we go. So what do you like in comics? Do you like whimsy? You've got it here. Do you like cool characters and intrigue? You've got it here. Do you like heists? Do you like psychotic talking bears? Do you like, weird shenanigans? You've got it here. But do you like completion? Do you dislike mystery? Because if you like completion, if you don't like mystery, actually, I just realized that I messed up with the thing. So that was Sam and Fuzzy, the first printing. Now that was then Noosehead, and now I'm talking about Sam and Fuzzy Fix Your Problem. So if you like completion, if you don't like mysteries that kind of stay unresolved, then I don't know if I can recommend this on its own. It, as a big volume, I would say, yeah, it's a great story and it carries on. But as this book on its own, it reminds me of, I've got up there The Great Gatsby, which is like The Great Gatsby, but with cats. And how much completion do you need moment to moment in a story? Do you need each individual purpose? Do you need each individual book to have a sense of completion within itself? Because don't get me wrong, there are jokes. There are great jokes. Here, Fuzzy teaches Devahi how to organize things and says, "Hey, see that box? Ah, the one in the corner. Ah, I got it. Well, if anyone asks, it's sorted. Break time." And there's the joke, the opening prop pages. Certainly, let me actually look through chapter 2 on its own. Chapter 2, here. The main section here would the second half of part 1, in fact, is a self-contained thing there, and it leads it up to, okay, there we go, there's a sense of completion, there's a sense of happiness. But within this book, it alternates between 10 years ago, Fuzzy's history with Hazel Kim, the master thief, and there's some mystery going on there. I'm not going to explain exactly what's going on because there's a bit of a reveal. There's all these flashbacks, then there's all the modern things, and then you think that they're going to tie together, and sure enough, they do in the loosest way that it goes into Fuzzy meeting Sam. There's a nice cohesion, and it's a good book on its own, but I don't think that it's satisfying as a book on its own. I think that as a book on its own, I almost feel like, personally, I'm either going to get all the other books or I'm going to, I'm probably going to get rid of this in any case, because am I going to get the other books? Maybe I will, because it is a really good story. Will I just be happy reading it online? Maybe. Will I keep this because I enjoy reading this part? I don't know. I should say that I'm biased. I am someone who hates mystery. I hate unresolved things. I like things to be tied up in a nice little way. I don't like having those vague mysteries. It doesn't fill me with some sort of sense of dread or satisfaction that I can imagine my own ending, and it just makes me feel, so what? Where am I meant to go from here? I enjoy it's unfortunate that I feel like everything I read now, I'm comparing to Usagi Yojimbo. When I compare it to Lone Wolf and Cub, I've got to be honest, I didn't actually... Lone Wolf and Cub, for me, had the sense of, okay, this is just too sprawling. Here, there's a good pacing, there's a good amount of, okay, the story keeps moving, there's new information, there's little bits where it comes from, okay, now we learn how, about the werewolf situation where, let me actually... Yeah, the attack with the werewolf, it's this dramatic spread with panels, angled gutters and things that are all askew, and giving it a real sense of urgency to everything, compared to when things are just a little bit more sedate, and then it goes... There's a real nice sense of coloring, of pacing, just looking at the panels, the regularity of the panels here, allowing it to be us to just concentrate, just to spend a little bit more time on each one, to have the repetition, to have the pause, and it's like, okay, a big establishing shot and pull in a little bit. I think Sam Logan is a master of the craft. There's no denying it. And I would encourage more people to go out and check the websites. If you've not already, definitely. I'm going to share that web link one more time. And I guess I'm going to now talk a wee bit about the website, because why not? So if you click on New Reader when you go to the thing, or actually if you click on the main, where's the table of contents, that's the best place to go. If you already know it, or New Reader, it kind of explains this is what's going on. And this is not exactly true that the current thing is Sam and Fuzzy fix your problem. It's kind of finished, which is weird. So we had volume 0. We had the Noosehead series where Sam was hidden away for a while, and then 2003 to 2006, this is where Sam felt like there was better artwork. And look, when someone's been doing it for 19 years, 3 times a week, consistently, of course they're going to get good. And by the time it got to Sam and Fuzzy Fix Your Problem, 2009, Sam had been doing it 7 years. So, there's a lot of these things don't. There's a wonderful sense of building. There's a wonderful sense of narrative. But whereas Usagi Yojimbo, you can read one volume and you can be satisfied with that. That's the only thing that I would say. This is very much designed to be a constant building, escalating story that just takes you on a wild ride, and it's never going to let go. But if you want a clean ending, if you want something nice to just enjoy, if you want something to enjoy and then put away and then you're not left wondering what happens next, this isn't it. But if you want something with an escalating cast that carries on growing more and more complex, honestly, this is probably my favorite online webcomic. Actually, I am going to say that this is my favorite online webcomic. Yeah. Usagi Yojimbo is probably my favorite comic ever, so it's pretty churlish of me to say, hey, why is this not Usagi Yojimbo? But you know what I mean. This is pretty darn awesome. And hello, CD. It is lovely to see you. And today I'm just talking about a few different comics that I've read in the past week. And I've started off with Sam and Fuzzy Fix Your Problem, which is an actual comic volume that I have. And it is a webcomic. I would very much recommend a webcomic. I believe that this is the best webcomic that there is, which is, hopefully, if that doesn't motivate you to check it out, then I clearly have no influence at all, which is quite possibly true. But there you go. Anyway, so I am done talking about Sam and Fuzzy Fix Your Problem. But it's over there on my handbag. Let me talk about Cartoon Coup by Ryan Estrada. Now, Cartoon Coup, this is a very old comic. And Ryan Estrada, I should say I am biased, because Ryan Estrada, and let me put a wee link to Ryan Estrada's website into the chat. So, if you don't know, Ryan Estrada, and hey, here's the book that I've got just in front of me.
You can see it. And Ryan has been amazingly prolific. Ryan hasn't done a single continuous thing, but Ryan has managed to do published things like Student Ambassador. There's a bunch that you can read free on the website, Aki Alliance. That's my favorite, probably, of these ones that are here, which is all about Aki, who tries to become friends. It's quite a weird one in a slightly misguided, overbearing way. And the kind of this is like a romantic comedy, the kind where someone is a werewolf, and it's just about differences. Ryan's also done a lot of autobiographical stuff, the true story of a fake apocalypse, and here's the beach from the beach, and the bear from the bear, and the beach from the beach. And you can see that Ryan Estrada, I am very biased because that is actually a reference to me. So this is a true story. That is pretty much exactly how it's happened. I mean, look, I'm not sure I actually suggested going back, but the dialogue isn't exactly how it's happened, but this is a true story where we we decided to take a kayak, and this is almost Ryan Estrada's autobiographical comic telling at its best. I mean, I'm very biased again, look, because that's me, and I appreciate that Ryan told this story about me. But this is Ryan just having some crazy adventures. Ryan does go adventuring. Ryan, at one point, had a video series where Ryan was taking these short 3-minute videos, going around to different countries and basically doing not quite dares, but it was doing challenges based on what people had done. So tell me the story. What do I mean it to you? Oh, I mean that, okay, let me take a step back. So let's see so challenge comics. Okay, let me take a step back. There is a person called Scott McCloud. Scott McCloud invented the 24-hour comic. I'm going to talk about Scott McCloud in a wee moment because I've got Understanding Comics, which is a brilliant comic, by the way. But so Scott McCloud invented a 24-hour comic. Now, Ryan Estrada heard about the 24-hour comic and thought, hey, that's good times, let's give it a go. Didn't quite manage it, then tried a 48-hour comic and did that, and then tried a 72-hour comic and did that. And I heard about this 72-hour comic that this person, Ryan Estrada, this was about the time that I first heard of Ryan Estrada. I got really into webcomics, was just reading and seeing who I liked. And Ryan was one of those people whose art I really appreciated. Now, this 72-hour comic, it's something that I've actually got over there, and it's a beautiful story about kind of time travel. It's a wee bit crazy, it's a wee bit zany. The rules are essentially 24-hour comic is 1 page per hour, 24 pages within a 24-hour period. Obviously, 72-hour comic is 72 pages within a 72-hour period. Now, this is how I got to know Ryan Estrada, and then I went on to do a 100-hour comic. Ryan did a few things to support me, which was super lovely. They actually just sent me the links earlier this morning. I should have checked if it was okay for me to share them. But, we became friends. We talked for a while, and this was like 72, 100, and 168. These numbers represent why I hate you. It used to be part of this like angry song that I would occasionally sing. Damn you, Ryan, damn you. But I also have these things that I'm actually not proud of, so I wouldn't So anyway, but I ended up going to Thailand because Ryan didn't do the 96-hour comic, because Ryan was going to do a 4-day thing and was like, yeah, I'm not going to do this. I'm going to instead go to Koh Phi Phi, which is an island in the middle of Thailand. And Ryan decided to help out. Now, I decided that I was going to do a 100-hour comic to try and raise money. I did this 100 comic. I charged people $1 if they wanted to read it, and a bunch of people gave me money, and then all that money went over. And also I ended up going over to Thailand and painted boats and digging places and doing a lot of manual labor and helping them rebuild stuff. So yeah, this is why whilst I was at Koh Phi Phi, we took a kayak, we went across the ocean, and I'm fairly sure it's fine for me to show this, where you can read the adventure of what happens when we're on the ocean and we just want to see the beach from the beach. I will also share a direct link to that so that you can check that out later. Anyway, so Ryan Estrada, quite a character, quite a prolific character. As you can see, does theatre, has done some short films, has done like a whole bunch of dramatic podcasts. Yeah, done a lot of interviews, and as time's gone on, I'm going to take a wee break from talking about what Ryan Estrada has done, and look at all the books that Ryan's been in. Pretty darn prolific. I mean, I remember one time Ryan had, I think it was for their birthday, did a guest comic on something like 50, 60 other people's comics. So there was a guest comic for a ridiculous number of other people. And I was part of the world. Ryan very much embraced that, and Ryan was very supportive, and yeah. So we met, and we are friends, and even though we've not seen each other in we only spent a brief amount of time back in 2005, which is 16 years ago, which is kind of crazy, which is kind of bewildering and astonishing. But we definitely developed this connection, if you see what I mean. And by virtue of Ryan doing this 72-hour comic, me doing the 100-hour comic, and then Ryan doing the 168-hour comic, which became plus 7 hours. It's a long story, but it was a week-long thing, and then I did a thing where for my entire academic year, I did 24 pages every day. We were pushing each other. We were very much, I don't know, well, I think Ryan might not have done the 168-hour comic if it wasn't for me. And unfortunately, you can't find it on the website, but PedXing, that is a really nice story. A really nice, simple, gentle story of some people who choose not to cross the street to their school, and they instead, actually, I just realized it's probably pronounced ped crossing, or I don't know. But anyway, it's just a story about these wacky hijinks. So let me go into Cartoon Coup. I am incredibly biased because I like this person. And I'm also biased because there's a little thing here. And this is a reference to something that I said would not be... yeah, I'm fairly sure this was a reference to my 100-hour comic. And that was... These pictures aren't available online anywhere. Let me actually raise the arms so you can see the full spread of the page. I do apologize for the shaky cam. And let me pop that here. Actually, it's fine. So, Cartoon Coup by Ryan Estrada, huh? And there's a little bit at bottom, but I'm going to... So it starts off with an autobiographical tale that explains everything. This is just Ryan to a T. Ryan is an interesting character whose life is an adventure, and the comics, when they are based on fact, they often end up a lot more interesting. There is a little naivety to these lines. There's a lots of things that Ryan just doesn't do anymore, so it feels almost churlish to point out. Things like, when these the thicker lines, this kind of, I don't know what to call this, when you've got thick lines that you need to do with 2 pens and then you just kind of do that. This kind of white bit around it feels a bit annoying to me. The panels are a bit basic. There's not a lot of background, although there's kind of a vague hint of, okay, I'm going to add in a second color just to make it look marginally more interesting. There's definitely a good sense of storytelling and timing. Ryan is just a storyteller through and through. If Ryan was not working in comics, Ryan would be working in film or animation or podcasting or something else. It's an easy read. It's one of those things where you'll make your way through the pages and then you'll be feeling a wee bit of tension. You'll be feeling a bit of bewilderment. And then it goes to, and so this is how I made the comic, because I decided that's how I was going to make the comic. The opening intro, this is just a beautiful thing. And I think that these autobiographical comics, for me, are the kind of comics that I most enjoy, so I'm very biased. We've got this weird photo comic, which is a silly thing that Ryan did, presumably with some students, and adding little drawings upon the photos. There's a little whimsical race. Then it goes back into this wonderful autobiographical comic where Ryan tells the story of doing some visa runs and the time that they slept in a typhoon, which, literally out in Japan, where Ryan had a terrible illness, and there's a wee, I would like to talk to Ryan about adventuring, because there's definitely a sense of, not Schadenfreude, it's almost like, I know Schadenfreude is to other people, but it's almost like Ryan has this sense of living, of not caring about the consequences, just enjoying the fact that this is so ridiculous, embracing that ridiculousness, and it is fantastic. And hello, Legends, it is lovely to see you. I'm just talking about Ryan Estrada and this comic, which is completely out of print, but I think I'm just talking about it in the context of, both as a piece of writing, of comicking. Let's call it comicking, because comicking, the fusion of writing and drawing. Then we've got our fourth section in this book, which is the first attack of the planet, of the Earth planet, which is this ridiculous, slightly surreal thing with slightly incompetent aliens and garish colors, big neon greens and pinks. Then we go back into autobiographical stuff, and the autobiographical stuff where Ryan talks about the homeless people that Ryan met, and Luigi, who, again, there's a lot of talking heads, there's a lot of dialogue, but there's a real expressiveness when there's like, oh, what's going on to me? And this kind of, okay, over familiar, why are you touching my face? Come on, Luigi. There's definitely a lot of, there's wonderfully, and using the typography to give emphasis to the key words, using panel layouts, that it, and yeah, again, the autobiographical tale, just so fantastic. And hello, J Fool's Guard, it is lovely to see you, and great. I will ask you about them in just a moment, and I'll properly catch up with people once I've finished going through this book. But so yeah, next we've got something that was originally done for as a guest comic, and this is all about Ryan's personal love of watching the end credits, and it's just a story about people watching the end credits. And it was originally done for, originally done for Instant Classic by Brian Carroll, and you can check it out online, maybe at IC Comics if that's still available. Now, you've got this little squirrel story, very short autobiographical thing, which is literally 6 pages. And then this short squirrel story, which is 12 pages, which is Ryan's first attempt at a 24-hour comic. Very clean, animated lines, strong characterization, strong, anthropomorphized squirrels. Just great work. And like the fight scene, there's some great work here. And Ryan did this 24-hour comic and didn't quite manage to do the 24 pages, but at the end there's just a really nice story here that would not exist were it not for Scott McCloud's challenge. And then towards the end we've got this weird post-it notes comic, which I don't know what it's. Yeah, a lot of wordless story told in teeny tiny squares. And then finally the story of how Ryan's arm got scarred. And yeah, it was a bunch of idiocy. Again, it would have been nice to have some backgrounds. And we carry on with like guest comics, okay, just stuff this is almost like a collection, or this is, as the start tells you, this is a collection of Ryan trying to make a book. This is Ryan's first book. This is Ryan just trying to think, okay, what am I going to do? A collection of different things. This is actually a wee short story for Sam and Fuzzy, which is the book that I was talking about a minute ago, where, yeah, if you ask people, hey, are you up for me doing if you just do it, they're probably going to let you do a guest comic for it, as long as it's up to particular standards. And then we finish up with, again, an autobiographical comic about Ryan Estrada going to school and getting their first comic printed at the age of, what was it, like 15? There you go, like that's amazing. And this big boy thing, and then yeah, finishing up with a sense of, hey, I've got to get out. Now, I asked Ryan this morning, and Ryan confirmed that these are indeed the 48-hour comic. I should say that 48-hour comic, I don't really consider this to be a 48-hour comic, because Ryan did all the text afterwards. So Ryan did all the pages, all the drawing within 48-hour comic, within 48 hours. And basically what Ryan's done here is Ryan's taken a lot of separate elements, but then by interspersing it with autobiographical stuff, admittedly very hastily done within the space of 48 hours, Ryan has managed to bring a sense of cohesion to this book. There are a bunch of totally and lots of love CD. Bye for now. And yeah, I think that this is brilliant. And even though it's out of print, and I don't think it reflects Ryan Estrada's full abilities today, I think that Ryan should be happy to have evolved as a creator. But this is, to my mind, this is just a great collection in physical form of stuff that someone made about 15 years ago, and how amazingly prolific they were. Let me actually get to some of the questions now. Let me make myself a wee bit bigger. There we go. So firstly, so Legends, yep, if you would like to share which board games or graphic novel you bought, I'm curious to know. And yeah, 100% I agree that 24-hour comics, 48-hour comics, any restriction. So when you've got something like, Sam and Fuzzy, where Sam is forcing themselves to put out a comic every 3 times a week, when you've got that sense of obligation, I think that public accountability can really improve stuff. And of course, as I said before, have a lovely, great long weekend. What do you mean a long weekend? Or is it because maybe in Australia and New Zealand they get an extra hour? Unfortunately, we don't do that. I talked about the 24-hour comic. Yep. The point is you just do what you can. When it's a 24-hour comic, you just do what you can. If you don't manage 24 pages, at least you've done something. If your 24 pages aren't brilliantly drawn, at least you've done something. If the story's not very good, at least you've done something. That's the thing. When you give yourself some sort of deadline, you've just got to get something out there. And when it's like myself, when I'm currently trying to write a book, and I'm actually going to give myself a wee shout out. I've got a Board Game Geek blog where every day I'm posting a little excerpt from it. So like I'm aiming for 500 pages every day at least. And so please check that out. If you've not already checked it out, do the subscription and you will get to see things that I have written. I'm currently on the What's the Game, but yeah, and that gives me a sense of motivation. That gives me a sense of, okay, I'm actually needing to write. It means that I'm doing more than I otherwise would. And however you do things, whether it's guest comics for other people, whether it's guest comics for like Sam and all the things, Sam, this is kind of a collection of restrictions that Ryan had put on himself. Let me make this bigger once more. So this is a collection of, 24-hour Comic King, the 72-hour Comic King with all the, simple drawings and autobiographical stuff. The, extra stuff for when Ryan Estrada just wanted to do a lot of guest comics for people. And yeah, and Ryan just really loves comics. And I think that comes across. And this is definitely something that I will always treasure, because it's not just, honestly, this would mean something if it was from someone that I hadn't met before, but because we did meet, this is kind of, actually, you know what, I'm going to show you something that no one has, and this is No, wait, that's not Ryan's thing. That's my thing. Oh, I thought I had Ryan's notebook somewhere because I took Ryan's notebook at one point. And Ryan was like, "Yeah, I don't care," and I was like, "Yeah," but no, right? I mean, I just want to be as prolific as Ryan, and lots of respect. So I'm guessing that at some point Ryan's going to listen to this. So hi, Ryan, and this is, even though Ryan has improved, and I'm going to show some of the more modern comics so you can see. Let me bring this up. So yeah, here's Ryan talking about what Love Hotels are like in 2014. You can sort of see how Ryan's already doing a lot more backgrounds. There's kind of a little bit, it's the infinite, using the infinite canvas, but probably drawing these on paper originally. I don't know, I'm just guessing. But there's definitely an evolution to the drawing. And then when you see the more recent stuff, you know, Ryan has visibly grown older. Ryan draws himself as they appear. And it's not just about autobiographical stuff of, hey, here are my adventures. It's also about, hey, I'm going to share other people's stories. And Ryan, yeah, nowadays does talk about, and this is all available on the main websites here. And there's definitely a sense of, you need to, yeah, you need to curate what you're showing at some point. And I'm also going to review Ryan's websites. I just think it's really big, really, it blasts you away with all the, wow, what's all this cool stuff. And you get to check all these things. Like if you want to read Aki Alliance, you can read it, and it's just such a great comic, and it's all there, and it's done in a really easy to read way. And you're not going to have to load things, and then you don't have to click on pages. There's no adverts or anything. It's just, honestly, Ryan Estrada, if you want to read some if you want to read some comics online, I would say that this is just such a good website, and I just cannot recommend it enough. So that is the end of my talk about that. So now let's have a wee bit of a break whilst I get myself there and properly catch up with things. So firstly, Ginkopolis and Stuffed Fables expansion. I have not, even though I've heard a lot of good things about both of those games. I was actually listening to Tabletop Inquisition, I believe, yeah, where they were chatting about Ginkopolis and Stranger Things. Oh yeah, that's the TV show. I've neither seen the TV show nor read anything about it, but I hope you enjoy all of that. How have you been getting on with Stuffed Fables generally? I hope that you've enjoyed the Stuffed Fables game. And sorry, I'm going to stand up for a wee bit and properly stretch my legs. But yeah, Stuffed Fables, I hear so many good things about that, about the story, and yeah, I would definitely like a go of it. But you know, so many games, so much media. And in a way, that's something nice about comics. Something nice about comics is that you can read through it quickly, or you can slow down and appreciate the panel layouts and the art. And some comics deserve to be savored again and again. And for sure, games deserve to be savored again and again. And that's kind of the key thing about games, that it's, well, having said that, if I'm playing an escape room game, that's not going to be something that I keep doing. But you know what I mean? Like with a graphic novel, I feel like I'm able to control the pacing a little bit more. And so I do prefer graphic novels than films, personally. And also, you know, it's that wonderful, wonderful marriage of pictorial representation and words that allows me to enjoy the same depth of story, but it's, you know, it captures more of my senses. Anyway, from a comic that is very slapdash, let's be honest, I don't say this, it's clear that this is very hastily put together. There's an urgency. Ryan had to do it before leaving the country to something very different. I got a graphic novel of the story of Andre the Giant. That sounds fascinating. I would love to read that. Is that Andre the Giant the wrestler? Is there an interesting story there? I mean, I'm just going to share like my personal bias, my personal favorite kind of comic, of book, of story is something that is self-contained. But yeah, maybe there's a world that, hey, there might be another book. So it kind of like a, yeah, I think, like I've already said earlier, my favorite comic is Usagi Yojimbo, so you can tell that I don't mind, you know, some characters that are evolving and everything, but definitely. And the graphic novel that I'm enjoying is Labyrinth Coronation, which is 3 volumes of the prequel to the movie. And wow, I hadn't even heard of that. And that's the thing, like these days, you know, board games are getting to the same point where, you know, there's so many available. Like we've been at this point now for decades with books and films and everything, where there's so much more than you could ever hope to read. But yeah, it's a good thing because sure, it does mean that some great stuff is going to not be found, but it also means that there's some. The graphic novel is called Andre the Giant Closer to Heaven. That is one that I am going to actually make a wee note of. Wait, that's not the right book for me to make a note of that. Where is my... Oh. I will... Cool. I'm glad to hear. And yes, Stan Sakai. Let's hear it for Stan Sakai, just an amazing artist. Now, Understanding Comics by Scott McCloud. I believe that if you're interested in comics, if you're interested in media, if you're interested in creative endeavors, this is something you should definitely read. This comes with my highest recommendation. I don't know how to say it any clearer than that. I believe that everyone should... no, should is a strong word. Should sounds like, oh, if you've not read it, then you're a bad person. That's not what I'm saying. You know what? If you've not read it, there's no judgment. I just believe that everyone... Certainly, if you're watching this, then please, if you've not read it, go out and read it. If you can afford it, please, if you have the money, please go out and buy this book. I can say it no clearer than that. 100%. Yeah, 100% recommended. And I will catch up with the... Actually, I'm going to catch up with the chat right now before I get too much into this. So firstly, Designer Cardboard, it is lovely to see you. Thank you for joining me. I totally get that. You know what, just sometimes, yeah, you've got to do it for your own sake, but that's a whole discussion. Feel free to bring it up after I've talked about this. That sounds super amazing. Wow, so you actually live close to Stan Sakai. That's really cool. And yeah, let's get back to Understanding Comics. fundamental for any visual media, and not just visual media. It's also fundamental for games and creative endeavors. But look, if you care about comics, if you don't like comics, then maybe this will give you a better appreciation of them. If you love comics, this will deepen your love. If you are interested in how things work, this is exactly that for comics. It is a comic. It is a comic, so it's fairly easy to read. It will only take you a few hours. There's a lot to ponder. There's one page with a lot of text, and on this one page with so much text, there's a little subversive thing where, why can't I get the light to properly focus? I'm going to show it here, where Scott McCloud says, read it later. Because Scott McCloud understands that you probably don't want to read, and you don't have to read about all of these references. And yeah, I think that, okay, cool, I can dig it. Okay, let me actually, honestly, I am going to analyze what goes on in this comic. I am going to give a quick overview. I'm not going to do it with the rigor or the quality of understanding that Scott McCloud has done for other people, but I'm going to take an attempt. I am going to do spoilers, so I think that honestly you will get the most from this book if you stop watching right now, and I won't be upset. Come back another day, or come back tomorrow when I'm talking to, who am I talking to? David Murcutt, or Tuesday when I'm discussing development, or Wednesday I'll be able to chat a lot. Like Wednesday, come in and I'll just chat around with whatever you're wanting to chat about while I'm making games. Although I'll try to focus on the making games, but you know, Friday is always a chatty day. You know how it is. Friday, Friday forum. Anyway, but I am now going to get really spoilerific, for want of a better word. So, understanding comics, great cover, tells you exactly what's going on, traditional fonts. You know, we are going to be examining comics. There is this, it perfectly explains what's going on. We've got the contents, setting the record straight, which is, that's not a really descriptive title, but then we start off with a definition. We talk about the vocabulary. We talk about the gutter, which is such a big thing about the timing within comics. And let me actually pause for a minute to bring my arm down a little bit. There we go. So yeah, why did I pop that out? Okay, so yeah. Okay, that's much better lighting. Great. Hello, Joanne. Lovely to see you. And I am talking about Understanding Comics by Scott McCloud. This is a great book. If you can afford it, I very, very much recommend this. This is honestly, in terms of anything that I would recommend, actually, this is one of the best things, you know, things, full stop. This is one of my favorite things. I'm thinking Little Prince is up there, Belleville Rendezvous, and Understanding Comics. Those are my three things, my three favorite things. So yes, honestly, Understanding Comics, I cannot overstate how much I love this and how much I am recommending this. And so I would recommend even that you just buy it. But yeah, so we've got time frames, which is all about how timing is shown. We've got about the quality of the line, about, you know, the iconography, about the 6 steps, which is really interesting. The 6 steps. This chapter from 162 to 185, it's not very much, but those 23 pages do apply to any creative endeavor. And we've got color and then putting it all together, which is kind of like a summary about the book. The introduction. This is a slightly self-deprecating thing of Scott McCloud, inventor, creator of Zot, which is a lovely, underrated superhero comic. That is one of my favorite things, but it's not in my top 5, but Zot also amazing, 100%. If you like comics, definitely check out and it's like, hey, it's kind of, I am a bit young to be doing this. There's a traditional 9-panel layout on the page anyway, a brilliant conversation. We've got establishing shots with a nice bit of, what is the publishing year? Good question. It is first published 1994. Oh no, copyrights 1993, first published 1994. So that is almost 30 years. It still really holds up. I read it last week. It's really good. Anyway, understanding comics. So we get into it. Now, chapter 1, Scott McCloud talks about what is a comic and talking about this is how I got into comics and this is what a comic is. Comics are different from what some people think. And Scott McCloud argues that comics are essentially, if you've got one picture, that's it. It's a picture. If you've got 2 pictures, then it's 2 pictures together. And then Scott McCloud comes up with, juxtaposed pictorial and other images in deliberate sequence intended to convey information and or produce an aesthetic response to the viewer. So it's basically putting things into order and having this, it's done in such a casual, approachable way. There are no wasted words in this. It's been edited to high heaven. We go back into history saying, let's look at older stuff discovered around 1519, but like this was like who knows where this stuff came from. I think this is Mayan, or it's basically old Mexico, and like looking at Egyptian stuff, and Scott McCloud makes brilliant use of the page, and this is where using the turn of the page to give you surprises. And this is where I just recommend you stop watching and just buy this book, because I had been trying to find sequence in Egyptian painting for years when I began this book and was ready to call it quits, until I discovered that the books I had been using as reference had only been showing me parts of the picture, tightening the frame, cropping out everything except for the eye to illustrate the point. This is only showing part of the picture. And then you say, whoa, and then you go over leaf and it is now showing you something like a whole manuscript. And this is very much a comic, showing Egyptian comics and talking about the invention of printing. And there are, any single spread of this has so much information. And we talk about old things like a rake's what was it, a rake's tail or a rake's and talking about comics being diagrams, about the use of comics, and that comics could do so much more than they currently do. It's not just about superheroes, about the vocabulary, about the Magritte Ceci ne pas un peep, which is about the representation versus the actuality of what it is, talking about the icon and talking about the nature that by simplifying something we can make it more relatable. Scott McCloud goes on to suggest that by having, we are, as humans, we do see faces in all sorts of things, and we are, but talking about the fact that we have this simplified notion of what's going on within our own theory. And Scott McCloud suggests that simplification allows us to see things as to lead to greater identification, whereas greater detail leads to greater viewing. It's almost like we are a tourist. Like, you know, when you say, hey, he hit me, or when you talk like identification, it's a weird thing because, you know, you identify with your car, you identify with your avatar in a game, you identify with your team if you're following sports. You don't, people tend not to say, oh, the team that, how was the game? Oh, the Rangers beat Celtic. If someone supports Rangers, they would say, hey, how was the game? And they would say, oh, it was great. We beat Celtic, because it's we. And you bring yourself into that. You start to identify. And yeah, this is about the nature of comics in other countries, in Japan, how, you know, maybe, and about the masking technique of Tintin, where Tintin is drawn with simplicity, and similarly in manga, where the main characters, and it's, I don't want to just be, I cannot overstate how much, you know, you might be thinking at this point, oh, yeah, BEZ is just going to show everything, and there's no point in even, no, this is, there's, every page is packed full of information. I've not gone through this page, but, you know, I've just started to sometimes read through, and then I might check out some of these references, but you read through and you don't need to know all of these things. It's done in such an approachable way. Even if you had never read a comic before in your, actually, no, if you've never read a comic before in your life, you would need someone to explain what order to read these things. But let's say let's assume that you understand how that panels work, at least in Western comics. This is the way that you go, and you're reading in this order. This does not assume knowledge. It doesn't assume that you know any of these people. It doesn't assume that it puts these people, and it kind of might make you think, oh, wow, I would love to check out some of these people like Robert Crumb, and then it says, oh, yeah, see page 216, and 216, if you care, is just, you know, a lot of text about all the things. And I would personally like to have more selected biography, but like, I would have liked one more, I don't know, but one more page I was going to say. But this principle of when to use icons, when to use more realistic arts, you know, for sure that's something that you can think about for games, for films, for animations, for paintings. And the guts are, you know, if you're just curious about what a comic is, this will tell you, hey, this is what's going on. This is like about philosophy, about the nature of, you know, the peekaboo game. It's like closure of kinds of understanding that things exist even when you aren't around, and talking about the interplay between the writer and the reader. And that's something that very much happens in games. This is so applicable to games, and so applicable to music, so applicable to writing. Honestly, well, not literally any create, but so many of them. And then it gets into, okay, let's look at the craft, and let's get into, okay, moment to moment, where we are thinking, okay, what happens? How can we go from a panel to panel? How can panels relate within one another? And Scott McCloud suggests broadly 6 ways to define that, which is moment to moment, which is very vague, but it's a bit more frequent than action to action, which is kind of like punctuating these things. Subject to subject, which means that you split up, move from a thing to a thing, scene to scene, and aspect to aspect, which means within one scene, and then of course the non sequitur. And then Scott McCloud, by creating this as a comic, Scott McCloud is able to demonstrate what Scott is talking about. Yes, using pastiches of things like Nancy and popular comics, but getting really in depth and saying, okay, let's actually analyze the way that panels are done in all these Western comics, and let's now compare these things to Japanese comics, which is fascinating. Where's the so like if you look at the Japanese comics, the way that Scott McCloud has charted them, there's a lot more of the aspect to aspect of talking about the nature of, in Japanese culture, you might be taking a slow circuitous route and throwing in pauses to illustrate the fact that sometimes, and talking about typography, talking about the art style, talking about exactly how things are drawn, talking about how time elapses within a comic, because it's not just panel to panel. Even within one single panel, there are moments. Even within one single speech bubble, it's not just a single moment, because it takes you some time to say that thing. And Scott McCloud says, yes, there's just a lot of weirdness, but trying to make sense of it all. Trying to do it. And then Scott McCloud touches upon the infinite canvas. It's not explicitly stated, and even though I'm not going to review it, let me leave that there for a moment. Here's another book that Scott McCloud wrote after reinventing comics. Spoilers, I like this, but not quite as much as understanding comics. And in Inventing Comics, Scott talks about infinite canvas and how quite a bit, and how comics can evolve into the next millennium. But here we get an idea of, what if it was a choose your own adventure thing drawn in this manner, exploring the nature of choice within comics like this? Is it a game? I mean, that's a question for me. Like, is it a game? Well, we've got agency. We've got the agency of choice. I think it is a game. It's basically a choose your own story. So yeah, I called that a game. And we've got the nature of lines, the nature of showing motion via what's going on, about using speed lines, about, okay, we can blur the thing that's moving, we can blur the background, or we can integrate things, and explaining how different artists do, different things, and talking about how it's not just about how you can do things. Is a triptych a comic? I mean, but Scott McCloud is never here to say this is exactly what it is. Scott McCloud was very much here to open the conversation. The fact that, what's that, 93, 94, so 16, wait a minute, 27 years, 27 years later, I don't think there has been anything to parallel this. The lines, the way that lines can reflect our mood, the way that you might, and the fact that impressionism can affect things, using a fill, using an impressionistic background, and talking about what artists have done in different natures, and talking about how this might be, I was going to say whimsy, Scott McCloud says whimsy, youth, and innocence, and finding the way to express things with such clarity, but still leaving the conversation open. And talking about symbology in comics and how we learn more and more. And this is where, again, spoiler alert, I mean, it's not chapter 6, show and tell, where we've got the interplay between what we show, what do the words do, what do the pictures do, and how do these words and pictures interrelate. And let's talk about, hey, and Scott McCloud actually draws comics to say, hey, let's explore different things. What if we were to tell a story using only pictures? What if we were to tell the same story using only words? What if we were to do it this? What if we were to play with things this way? And Scott McCloud kind of shows you the process of what is possible by actually doing it. This is someone who was already incredibly accomplished. Zot, again, I cannot overstate, Zot is a brilliant comic. Complete Zot definitely gets it. It's just such a darn good comic, although I lent my copy to someone else and I want it back, so, but I don't, yeah, I think, anyway, I'm going to get a new one at some point. Zot, complete work of Zot, it's such a good comic. And this is someone who was already used to an accomplished craftsperson who is able to draw, who is able to replicate other people's things. And yeah, we go into chapter 7, which is all about creativity and what is art. And Scott McCloud basically says anything that is not for survival, so anything that's not survival or reproduction is art. So, for example, a cave person doing this and making a weird gesture is art. So here, someone who's drawing things randomly, or someone who's doing some sort of dance or doing some sort of rhythmic percussion, that is art. It doesn't need to be particularly good things. And Scott talks about the nature of what is art, and yeah, people using arts as a sort of gatekeeping device and railing against that. And then, talking about the 6 steps of idea, form, idiom, structure, craft, surface. This is the kind of book that anyone would be, yeah, this is the kind of book that comes across like very few times in a generation. Something that sums up a chapter that basically distills what you've got, like this, talking about how some people can just enjoy the surface level, but then they go back and then they become better at the craft, but then they might learn the structure of what they're doing, and then eventually they learn about, okay, why am I doing this? And hey, what do I actually want to say to the world? What's the idea? Is it all about my story, or is it about the nature of what it is? And now, yeah, and Scott talks about storytellers via people who are all about the craft. And of course, if your goal is just to draw a story about your dog, then that's also a valuable thing. And yeah, that is this is such a good chapter. Honestly, this chapter 7, that's why, honestly, anyone, buy it for yourself. If you're a crafter, buy it for yourself. If you are a game designer, buy it for yourself. If you are a photographer, buy it for yourself. And then chapter 8, words about color. And this was my favorite. I'd forgotten about this, where you read it and then you're like, and then there are many, and then in comics, the career of color has been a bit well spotted, and then see, wait a minute, is that in color? And then you see suddenly that there's blue and green. And Scott McCloud, I think Scott McCloud realized that to talk about something, you need to properly show it. So, yeah, again, spoiler alert. So this is where I would, oh, you already know what's coming up. I already told you to just buy it and just ignore everything I'm saying about it. But yeah, so then it goes into color, because to talk about color, we need to show color. To talk about games, we need to show games. Like it's, I do wonder whether one day there will be a game that actually talks about games. That is a bit more difficult because there is so much, because to have true agents, anyway, but Scott McCloud was very much, this is almost the epitome of show and tell. Not only, and yeah, 100%, this not only was Scott talking about a thing and showing you this is a comic that's about comics, but when it's, hey, we are going to talk about red, blue, and green, we will show you red, blue, and green, and we will show you what I'm talking about. We will show you, I'm not just going to describe in some vague manner what garish early superheroes were like. I am going to show you that things started to change by like Winsor McKay, who used beautiful, softer colors with the, colors that are easy to think of. I mean, this is so, a panel like this, okay, so like a panel like this where the person in their head is thinking, okay, green, red, green is the Hulk, kind of blue, white, blue, yellow, grey is Batman, of course, that's old school, but it just shows it so clearly, so much more concisely than you could do with words. And if you believe that comics are a valuable method of communication, then why wouldn't you use comics to talk about comics? If you believe that comics are easier to read, if you believe that they are, why would you write a book without pictures if you want to make it about comics? And so, yes, Scott, very much, this is just genius, this entire section. And then, like, of course, at the end of the color, okay, for printing purposes, for cost, the color goes away, but maybe the color, and it's also a stylistic choice because it makes you feel that explosion of color. And then chapter 9 is a summary of, yeah, this is what we are, and it summarizes everything. And I've got a wee thing here. I want to read out this panel verbatim. As I said in chapter 7, I believe we all have something to say to the world. I'm a firm believer in the inherent worth of all inner truths. Scott McCloud, that is so inspirational. That is so motivational. Thank you so much for that. This is an inspiring thing. And it ends up saying, hey, you know what? If you want to make something, we can all do this. And of course, they don't have to be these, and encouraging people to create whatever they are creating, encouraging people to appreciate the entire history. And it all comes together in a beautiful way. And at the end, you get this, yeah, beautiful finishing. And then that's basically the end of the book. This is the world of comics as I understand it so far. And it finishes just as it starts. This is the most charming ever. The most charming thing ever. Just as it starts with a slightly self-deprecating one-page spread about the conversation of, hey, aren't you a bit young to be doing this sorts of thing? And Scott's just lost 4 words. It finishes up with, yeah, a personal message. And yeah, that's the personal message for thank you. I hope you'll continue exploring or continuing to explore comics on your own. And then it goes, oh, wow, did I take that? And then pulling out for a shot in the same place as it started, in Scott McCloud's drawing room, with Scott McCloud's partner saying, at least you're not married to him. I get this all the time. You finished the book and you've been on a journey. And yeah, let me make myself bigger now. Even just talking about it, even just flicking through it after having read it a bit less than a week ago. So yeah, 100%. I think that the fact that it was in print for such a long time is a testament to the brilliance of the book. I mean, all of these quotes, I mean, yeah, Will Eisner, Jim Lee, Arch Spiegelman, and like a bunch of newspaper, Matt Groening, who's best known for The Simpsons, and Publishers Weekly, Chicago Slick. There's this is, yeah, I said at the start, this is one of my favorite things. I'm actually thinking of Belleville Rendezvous, Little Prince, Understanding Comics, and I do like Hokusai's. I know it might be a bit cliche, but I do like Hokusai's Great Wave. I can't think of any song that any single song that would say, yeah, that's going to have that same depth and that same level of I would recommend that quite so much. And yeah, in terms of mass-produced stuff, yeah, I think this is joint first. It is just so good. Possible birthday gifts for people. Buy it for yourself. Buy it for everyone. Yeah. Whoa, there's a wee. Yeah, got the urge to read it again. Understanding Comics quite literally blew my mind several times. I assume it is still in print, or I assure you it is still in print. I'm not sure which one you mean, but I assume that it's going to be in print for decades to come. This is honestly, I think that out of everything that has been created in my lifetime, yeah, I'm not saying that, wow, but definitely, if you can afford it, if you have, please, if I've told you enough, let's talk about Zot. Zot is a superhero comic. It starts off like a standard superhero comic, but just very nicely done. And there's an interplay between Zot, but Zot lives in a fantastical world, which is very simplified, and Jenny lives in our world. And Jenny, it's actually almost a meta commentary. It is a commentary about the differences between superhero worlds and our own. Zot is a commentary about how the world of superhero comics is simplified and how it's not so easy to eradicate crime. It's not so easy to stamp out evil. It's not so easy to do any of these things. The world has so many more grays. people are not just evil, people are not just good. And I think so. Zot, very, very interesting, and heartily recommended. And that's actually why Scott McCloud always draws himself with a lightning bolt, because this lightning bolt is kind of like them doing a wee promotion for Zot, because Zot had the lightning bolt on their thing. But yeah, that is that. And so I'm glad to hear. Let me actually do a wee quick stretching, because I have been sitting for a wee bit. But that is the end of all my ramblings, all my reviews. Let me get rid of this. So yeah, hopefully that's given you some ideas of what you might want to read. Oh, I was going to actually talk about Scott McCloud a wee bit more, just on their website. Let me quickly bring up Scott McCloud's website. Oh, so scottmcloud.com is where you want to go if you want to check out Scott McCloud's website. And Scott McCloud on their website has a bunch of silly things, like their daily musings, where they made a bunch of comics literally every day, and it was kind of like a bunch of morning improv, spending an hour or two each morning yeah, doing these things. And see who, oh yeah, this is and it was kind of just Scott McCloud experimenting and just drawing something. Scott McCloud's designer of the 24-hour comic, which you can read things and learn about them. You can learn about what Scott's done and check out their webcomics. If you check out webcomics, the right number is a really nice one. The Carl comics, that's a really cool one. And so the Carl comics, original recipe Carl. Oh yeah, so the idea of this is that Carl is, this is an interactive version of, this is Scott McCloud essentially playing with what is possible within the world of comics, and how would we lengthen it or shorten it, and what is essential to make a comic, if that makes sense. And then doing the whole choose your own adventure style thing. But also definitely, if you don't have any cash but would like to see, hey, who is this Scott McCloud character, definitely check out their website, where I think that it makes you think. It's kind of, it's not just saying, hey, look, the thing about Scott McCloud, right, is that there's some people who are great at just think, oh, wow, that would be possible. And there's some people who are great at teaching in that way, but it can be very dry, it can be very academic. Then there are some people who can actually do this stuff. But Scott McCloud is one of those rare people who can do both things. Scott McCloud is able to teach and do, if you know what I mean. So Scott McCloud is able to make it entertaining, to draw his comic. And anyway, this is just going to get into the Scott McCloud love fest. But I don't know if Scott McCloud's ever going to watch this, but if you do, thank you so much for making this comic. And it is such, this is the best thing, mass-produced thing. When was Little Prince? I think it was like the 50s. Trade this edition 1995, but when was, I'm fairly sure The Little Prince was way before my time originally. 1944, yeah. Okay, I'm going to say that this is definitely in my top two things: Understanding Comics and Belleville Rendezvous. And frankly, I would recommend this. Nah, I'm going to say this is still my joint favorite thing. This and Belleville Rendezvous. So as far as mass-produced media goes, boom, definitely check it out. Cannot recommend it enough. That is the end of my show. I hope that has been of some sort of interest. I hope that it's been of some sort of use or inspiration. And please do check out all of those things. Definitely buy this. Check out Ryan Estrada online, even though you can't buy this book. Ryan Estrada's actually continued to improve. Definitely check out Ryan Estrada. Maybe check out Sam Logan. Sam Logan is my favorite. Sam and Fuzzy is my favorite serial webcomic. So if you want an ongoing serial webcomic to read, then check out Sam and Fuzzy. And in book form, it's just a bit nicer to read. Let's be honest, it's nicer to flip a page and have it and not have this light shining into your head and potentially giving you a wee headache. But that is that. So to finish off today, oh my gosh, I should have actually changed. I wonder if comics is actually a category. Comics? Nah, apparently comics is not a category on Twitch. Maybe I should have graphic novels. But I am tempted. I don't know if anyone wants to do one game of words on stream before we finish up. But yeah, I think I might finish up at that point. It has been lovely having you anyway. I hope that I find you well. If you would like to check me out, you know where I am: stuffbybez.com, twitter.com/stuffbybez, instagram.com/stuffbybez, twitch.tv/stuffbybez, and I stream every day at 10 a.m. UK time for the next 67 days, and youtube.com/stuffbez for the old episodes, and join the Discord for the ability to share pictures of cats or food or talk about game design and share ideas. And I'm always up for helping folk out. So thank you very much, everyone. It's been lovely having you all. And at this point, I ask, over to you. What are you up to? You can share anything you want to. I am going to be chatting with a friend in about an hour and a half. I might have a wee bit of lunch. I'm thinking of reading some more comics. I might I'm going to probably, where's my bits of paper? I'm going to be playing a wee bit of Dinosaurs Love Spicy Pies. I am doing a wee bit of playtesting with my family in the house. I've asked one of my parents very nicely who doesn't mind playing games, so we will see how that works out. And yeah, that's Roland writes. I worked on it on Wednesday, and well, it's been lovely having you as well. Thank you very much. Lots of love. And so, you know what? Since it's been a while since you've been here, let's do a tiny bit of words on stream. Just one, maybe two games, and we'll see how we get on. So, my favorite manga is called Bride's Story. Ooh, let me actually... Bride's Story. Let me check this one out. Ooh, that does look beautiful. Wow. A historical... It's been serialized since October 2008 with 13 volumes since 2020, as of 2021. Okay, so the fact that it's 2008 until the present does make me slightly worried about getting into it, just because I worry, is there going to be any sense of completion within it? Because, yeah, if you weren't here when I was talking about Sam and Fuzzy Fix Your Problem, I really enjoyed this story, but my one complaint was that there wasn't a sense of completion. I didn't get to the end and think, wow, now I can put it away and feel satisfied. Now I've got to go online and read the rest of it, which, yes, it's available for free, but I feel like it's one of those things where I need to have all the things. It's not like Usagi Yojimbo, where I could say, yes, if you've got just one of the Usagi Yojimbo books, for the most part, all of them are nicely self-contained, and there's quite often an arc. I might do. I'm trying to go through what I've got right now, and yeah, I'm looking up. There's a lot of books that I've not read in a while, and I'm trying to organize my things while I'm up here because I'm going to leave my parents' place in less than a month. But I will definitely, I'll check it out, see if I see it. Honestly, when I go to a public library, when I go to a new place, I tend to just buy very soon, I'm a voracious reader, especially with comics, and there's a certain point where I'll just have read everything that the library has. So I don't think I know any libraries around here or London that I have access to that have that book necessarily, but again, thank you very much for the story. I'm mucking around with Twine at the moment. Played Scythe with my brother today. My 2-year-old is overloaded on chocolate, and yes, I assume that the interactive fiction app where you can make, hey, click this and that happens, or click that and that happens. That sounds lovely. Okay, before we finish up, let me let me actually add a little thing. Finishing with words on stream. After party. So this is the kind of, I've already talked about the main thing, and now we're going to have the after party. So like, if you want to carry on talking about what you're up to, then please carry on. And at this point, my next streams, if you are watching this on YouTube, the next section will not make any sense. So I'm just going to try and finish up my next streams. Tomorrow I am talking to David Murcott. Tuesday I'm talking with an in-depth design discussion. In the evening, playing some simple words games. Feel free to jump in. Wednesday, I will be by myself, but trying to make games, but feel free to jump in and make suggestions or watch how it's done. I will be doing a wee bit of chatting. Thursday, chatting with we're meeting Maisie, who is a Japanese English translator, which I'm really excited about because I've never met I have had a previous two previous Japanese people on the show, but this is the first time I've had a person who's translating things into Japanese, although they are American. I think I want to mention that. And of course, Friendly Friday Forum. Next Saturday is Mentoring Dutch, and next Sunday I am going to be discussing Netrunner with Serenity. So if you don't know what Netrunner is, we will be learning all about it together, and we will be learning, hopefully, fingers crossed, they will tell us a little bit about the history. And I know that it was a game by Richard Garfield. I played it a couple of times myself, and then it got bought by Fantasy Flight, and then they got rid of the rights. But anyway, you know what? Yeah, do that. Write some rules. I support you. And if you want, share it in like the Discord, like share cool stuff, and then we'll be like, yeah, well done, J Fool's Guard. Good on you for writing these rules. So I hope that goes well. And so that was my next streams. And please share, spread the word. And if you want to leave now, well, that is totally cool. And lots of love and bye-bye. Bye-bye. But if you want to stick around for a tiny bit, wait a minute, where's my banner gone? Where's my banner gone? Huh. Oh, there we go. Finishing after party. Okay, so we are now having the just playing maybe 2 games of this. 3 games is the absolute maximum. So if anyone fancies some words on stream, then please stick around for that. Able Gamers. I have not heard of Able Gamers. I know that I know Able Table, which is by AJ LeBron, but that's not a charity. But Able Gamers, let me. You know what? I will very quickly have a wee look at that. Able Gamers. Let's. Okay, an American non-profit gamer with disabilities. Okay, so this is all about allowing people to play games with who might. Okay, I get it. So it's trying to make gaming more accessible. That sounds lovely. Yeah, it's up to you. I mean, looking around, that seems like a reasonable thing, and definitely a lot of their money apparently goes to their mission, and a wee bit of it goes to their overhead, and so you've got a wee bit of a breakdown of. It seems quite, yeah, like spreading joy, and so yeah. I don't know anything about them specifically, but I support anyone who's doing anything with love and compassion. Whatever you can do yourself. And before we finish up, let me actually, yeah, was words on stream. Let's go for 2 games maximum. Just a quick wee thing. So for those who don't know, it's all about doing Sate, for example, and so you've got to wait. Why is Sate not a word? Come on, wait. Why is it not working? T's. What's going on? Teat. It feels like it's not connected. Let me go back. Maybe I clicked YouTube rather than Switch. Let me try it again. Okay. Yeah, I don't understand what's. Why is it not working today? Site. Yep, apparently it's not working. So I guess that's a decision made for us. No. The magic has been broken. That's the thing about magic. Sometimes it goes away. And apparently this game is just not working today. But I guess I'll just move on to doing the raid in that case, if this is. And hello, Leandro Noir. For some reason, it doesn't seem to be working. I don't understand. We've been typing things in, and it just doesn't register them at all. And so, yeah. But no, it's just lovely to see you. Let me actually get rid of that raid button since he came over, the Adro Noir. I will try one more time and refresh the window. Is there some sort of hard refresh I can do? Twitch. So So exit Stuff by BEZ. Yep, it's synced to Stuff by BEZ with the level 23. That is correct. So let's give it one last go. And but yep, you know what? It's just not working. Let's not carry on. Let's not worry too much about it. And I'm just going to say thank you, everyone. It's been a lovely time. I am going to change this to just chatting. I will raid Aviv or it's Kalinsky. Shoot. Avivor has 13 people. Kalinsky only has. Let's go with Colin. So if you are watching this after the fact, this won't make much sense, but on Twitch, I like to share the love and spread the love to someone each time. And you know what, that's totally fine. It's all good and lots of love. Thank you for popping in. And yeah, I know that you're all about the board games, so I would recommend Tuesday might be a really good day to be here. But you already know. Firstly, thank you. We are all up to doing our own stuff, and next streams I talked about, and check that out and spread the word. But now we're raiding and get rid of that. And lots of love to everyone. It has been so lovely having all of you here. And that is now the time has come. And so I face the end, I'm certain. I am going to get on with my day. We are all going to go on our own way. We are all going to do some of our own stuff. And whatever you get up to, I know that it's enough. Bye, 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 bye. This is the goodbye song. Bye, 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 bye. Thank you for watching along. Bye, 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 bye. This is the end of the show. Bye, 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 bye. And now it's time to go. Bye, 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 bye. This is the goodbye song. Bye, 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 bye. Thank you for watching along. Bye, 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 bye. This is the end of the show. Bye, 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 bye. And now it's time to go. Bye-bye, everyone. Bye-bye. Bye to those who aren't here anymore. Bye-bye. 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 Bye-bye, bye, 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 bye. This is now the end. Bye, 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 bye. I'll be back tomorrow, my friends. Bye, bye, bye. This is the end of the show. Bye, 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 bye. And now it's time to go.